I got it. Hey, how you guys doing? It's the producer from Brothers Comics. Welcome to this is kind of an unnamed podcast at this point in time. We'll talk about that in a second. On the line tonight, two of my favorite Marvel hacks, Sandman. Oh God, look at that.
You want to
Look, we'll
start
get it out
over?
of the way. Like, just no, not at all. This is really what it is. Like, look, if you have been around, if you follow him on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, Sandman has, he's been down. He had a medical condition. He's on the mend. He's getting better. A lot of y'all sent tweets and all those types of things to him, and that's great. We have been in a position where we were just like, we didn't really know what to do, and we kind of talked it out. And we know Sandman listens to this now that he's on rehab and on the mend, so we kind of continue to go with it. So what this is going to look like moving forward, we're not all together 100% sure, but Sandman, we miss you, man. We love you. We can't wait for you to get back on here for real. But beyond that, on the line tonight, it's Brother Beavis. Brother Beavis, say what's happening.
Hey, what's happening? And yes, absolutely shout out to Sandman. I mean, I think the thing that hit me is, we've talked in the background about the ongoing text chain, and man, that shit dried up without the Sandman. I mean, I think he was as much as he's like the one to kind of just sit here and shake his head like, here y'all go again on the podcast. He was, not only like getting conversations started, but keeping them going. And with the producer and me, like, we've been friends forever. Like, we could go like a year of like not saying a single word, show up and be just like back into it. And the joke was, back in the day, was like, my mom would be like, how's the producer? Because even then she knew he would be going under a pseudonym. And I was like, I don't know. What you guys talk about? I don't know. We just talk about stuff. So yeah, but Sandman's definitely missed, and just to have him kind of just starting to get back in the loop is a blessing. And we miss you and look forward to having you back here.
Yeah, for real. Them freaking 6 o'clock texts from Sandman about something that happened, man. Like, I mean, there's nobody
6 o'clock a.m.
AM, yes, sorry. Yeah, there's nobody that listen to more podcasts and ingest more podcasts and media, whatever, to get out to us. So yes, for real. That's a good point. Also on the line is Hutch, man. Hutch, say what's happening.
Hello, and everything that you guys said about the Sandman is all true. And as I am a blood brother to one of the people on this podcast, and we could go for weeks without talking. And so, hell, maybe months, but nonetheless,
for sure.
But yes, Sandman been through it all for almost 40 years.
Yes, sir.
And let's make it 50, 60, 70.
Yeah, for real. Like, so again, like I said, a lot of people, y'all sent messages or whatever. He is on the mend, just not ready to be getting back on podcasts. Hopefully that'll happen in the near future, but that's kind of where it is. So like I said, we weren't really sure what we were going to do when he kind of, was dropped off the podcast a little bit. We were in the middle of not in the middle, like in the early parts of our Avengers Forever kind of recap podcast, so we could talk about Kang, one of Sandman's favorite characters. So we're kind of like, man, I don't really want to jump back into that because it just kind of felt kind of weird. So we kind of threw around some ideas. And then luckily the people at screenrant just absolutely gave us a fucking softball to literally knock out of the park, whereas they did a list of the top 10 X-Men artists. And as we get into this here later tonight, it's going to become very apparent that this is obvious clickbait. And also written by somebody that has probably not seen 35. That'd be fair.
It's somebody that needs people to click on their article, no matter what their age is, because this list don't make no yam sense.
It doesn't make any yam sense for a lot of particular reasons. And so when I sent it out to y'all initially, I said, this shit is infuriating. And by going through it today, it hasn't gotten any less. So we're going to go through it bit by bit. We'll show some of the art from these people or whatever, and we'll have something to say about all of them for sure. But all right, so let me see. Make sure I'm going through this, my list. Okay, so cool. Here we go. All right, and then we'll talk a little bit about who didn't make the list, because there's definitely some omissions for sure on here that you would obviously identify with the X-Men. I personally, if you're on the YouTube channel, you see I got, Pepe La Raz on there, more recent X-Men artist, particularly from House of X, who does a great job. So, all right, let's get into it. All right, number 10 was Art Adams. And it felt like this was somebody put on there. We're like, hey, we need to put an old person on the list because I'm 32 years old and I don't know anything about Art Adams. And the shit is like Aardvark in the fucking dictionary. Like, oh, it was the first one. Art Adams, brother Peters.
No, I think I've seen a lot of his work. I think he did a lot of the stuff around. I think he might have drawn Excalibur for a while or something like.
Yeah.
So he would. I don't remember him having any long runs, but I think he does have a distinctive style, and he's been on and off in various comics throughout the year. So I don't know. This doesn't necessarily bother me.
If you trust Wikipedia, Wikipedia says he was never an actual artist on the X-Men book. He drew 3 annuals, and the reason that he was never on any real books is because he draws too slow. So he did the long shot mini series, which should be a strike enough to get him off this fucking list. And he did like 3 X-Men annuals. So if you'll turn the screen over to me, let's see how that works.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, so let's see if we go here. Share. Oh shoot! This always happens to me. Why do I always get a warped one?
The 5P, sir.
Why do I always get a warped one?
Is that piss poor planning prevents?
I just freaking had this all set up. I had this all set up. God dog it! Where is it not showing up on here? Hold on.
Oh boy,
I know.
We're really seizing the audience by the throat.
Yes, I know.
And brother Beavis hates this too.
We are.
It's not in my. It's in my top.
No, it's me and my father. I don't fuck what's going on here. All right, stop share. I can't do it. Hey, what the hell? I had it there. Like I literally had it. He didn't have a freaking long run on anything here, folks. That's all I'm trying to say. He was not one of the people that had a long run on any X-Men anything. And so why is he making the top 10 of something that he was never even a part of? Explain that to me, please. Somebody. Anyone? Bueller?
This is probably like I was a fan of Art Adams on some other obscure book, and he drew something with an X in the title, so I'm going to put him on the list. Or like you said, it's the first one in the dictionary or the encyclopedia.
Aardvark. All right, here we go. Sorry, found it now. So he was part of the annuals for that Asgardian crossover thing. Yay, which also sucked, by the way.
I think he did a lot of cover work too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They said that he was somebody that they wanted him to emulate Paul Smith, who's going to come up later here in the list. And you can kind of see it from that cover a little bit, the kind of minimalist style.
You don't see anything, sir.
Right.
You don't see anything?
I see JPEG something.
It doesn't come up?
No.
I'm bent. I'm
take
bent.
away
I'm
your
what am I supposed to do? I freaking saved it.
You saved nothing.
I saved it.
Nothing.
Yes.
Good day to you, sir.
Good day, sir. All right. So anyway, he shouldn't be on the list as far as I know. I don't really care. And I can't show you his crappy art. Number 9 is even worse. Go ahead, Hutch.
It's not crappy, but the top 10 X-Men.
Top 10 X-Men.
In the last 60-something years.
Yeah. Would you say that that's the case? Yeah, I wouldn't either. Okay. All right. So how about then number 9, Michael Choi? Now, granted, his run for whatever he did was in the blind period of, hey, I just had some kids and I ain't reading comic books from 2008 to 2009. So for me, absolutely nothing. But he did Uncanny X-Men 495 to 499 again in that era of like darkness for me. Does anybody know anything about Michael Choi? My note on here says, who the hell is this?
Yeah, is modern comics in a very like almost painted style. So I mean, it's great art, but
Is it?
I mean, but to be like again on the top 10 list, this is again I think sort of more modern fan.
And how do you make the top 10 list if you got 5 issues under your belt too?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how is that even can be considered a serious run if you don't really have any freaking books, to make sense with that? So that just doesn't help. Oh, hush with the pull up there for Michael Choi. Thank you, brother.
We're related.
Yeah, it's like the painted style. There's also that style at that time in the X-Men too, where there was a reason I wasn't reading these books at that particular time too. It's the Scott, it's the Scott Emma situation that's kind of, for me at least, I didn't enjoy any of that. And I mean, I think I can answer this question. Have y'all even thought about going back and reading books from that era?
I've tried, but
that's better than me.
Well, so I've been wrestling with the app. Another thing, I don't know what they've done with that, but I've been wrestling with the app just to like be able to load a comic. I was trying to read the relaunch of House of X and trying to follow that in order, and it was okay, whatever. But then the app took a dump. So, even if I did, like, it's not there.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't. I mean, again, I think you should have some version of longevity here to have been a part of that. And in my humble opinion, you should have at least been on the book for a little bit, because it says best X-Men artist. And then as you go through the list, we'll get to point it out here in a second too. All right, he did X-23 too, so I know y'all have those issues. Freaking Laura.
No.
Yo,
that was literally my first time ever seeing any of his art.
Okay.
Ever.
Literally young freaking X-Men Twitter loves X-23. They love Laura, man. Okay. Yeah. They do.
Right, when
they're like, when they make the movie, she should be Wolverine. I'm like, have y'all met people? Like, that's never gonna happen. You may get a character out of it, but she ain't going to be Wolverine. It's just not gonna happen.
Don't never say never with this.
That's fair.
Who would have thought Disney would own a Marvel franchise 25, 30 years ago?
All right. Number 8 on the list, this is where the infuriating part started. It's
John boy,
Byrne.
It's
John Byrne. Okay, and we're not gonna spend a whole bunch of time here because one, having him 8th is the biggest piece of bullshit that you could ever possibly got. I mean, it invalidates the entire list from the beginning. We could do a whole ass podcast on his run on X-Men. Like, we could, and we've reviewed a good portion of the book. Yes, exactly. Like, I mean, because his run is so amazing on the books, and just like he's number one. Like I mean, we're gonna get to whoever's number one here. There's maybe you could debate it a little bit, but there's no chance that he's not the number one artist on X-Men. Anybody, Bueller? Anybody got anything outside of that?
I mean, what would be worse, to put him at 8 or leave him off the list?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I mean, because when you sent this, I was like, all right, well, the key question is where do they have Byrne? Right. I was like, number 8. I'm like, okay, well, this is trash.
Right.
Let me see who's number 1, but
this is right. This is what?
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Thanks for pulling out a punch. I mean, just look at this ridiculousness on the run, just the Phoenix stuff. But even if you don't even use that, if you go back to this introducing like Alpha Flight or what, like,
we're talking about the get the Alpha Flight art X-Men too. So you might.
I meant like that. Wait, wasn't that him? Or was that Cockrum? Okay. Like when Alpha Flight first appeared in the X-Men.
Alpha Flight, or not Alpha creator, but whatever. I mean, all this. This is.
There's no X-Men anything without Byrne's run. Literally zero, zilch, nada. There isn't. We don't have any of that stuff. Whatever inspiration he had given to Jim Lee or whatever that they took for the 90s cartoon, fine, granted. But that doesn't happen without Byrne's run.
Mm.
And okay, how many X-Men movies have we had?
Yeah.
About 12 or whatever. What 9 or 10 of them are based off of the shows or the things that he was drawing and
Right.
writing.
Yeah. I mean, he's an amazing artist. I mean, and again, how the young kids do it, he was doing multiple books at the same time too.
Without computers.
Without a computer, exactly. I mean,
right.
Yeah, you don't have any of this X-Men stuff without Byrne. Period.
You don't. I'm not reading the X-Men. That's what got me into it. I mean, his art is most beautiful stuff in 4-color panel comics ever. Right.
Yeah, and his run goes from I guess 108 to 143. So what, 36 issues, is that right?
Something like that.
I mean, that's a 3-year run essentially from 77 to 81, it says on the Wikipedia. I mean, and he got every inch out of it and every freaking panel out of it. I mean, amazing.
And I watched him. I followed him off of X-Men books and into the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I followed him when we went to DC afterwards.
Superman.
Getting the Supermans and the Batmans and the that he is X-Men, or he's my artist, maybe number one, no matter what, let alone the X-Men.
Yeah, I mean he's something else. I don't 8. That's just awful.
Right.
It's just awful. Period. All right. So what? Yeah, John Byrne, number 1. All right, number 7, Neil the God Adams. On X-Men. Now I know Neil Adams for a lot of things. I don't think I ever remembered him doing X-Men, but because he did them when it was not a very popular book, like before the split, with the giant size X-Men. He drew those books then. Did y'all know Neil Adams drew X-Men?
No.
Hutch?
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I know him for like some of his. I mostly know him for his DC stuff. Like I knew he did some Marvel stuff, but I know him mostly for his DC stuff. I had it in here, and I had a freaking copy of the picture, but I can't figure shit out. Yeah, it was like X-Men, like 63, something like that. Like
he drew right before it got canceled, right?
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
Not that he got it canceled. It was already. Sales were down. But yeah, he had like a 8-issue run that leading up to the cancellation and going into reprints.
Right. I mean, like that's very interesting. Why is Cyclops wearing Quicksilver's outfit there? Did y'all ever go back and read them damn books? I know Brother Beavis did because you're that dude. But Hutch, did you ever go back and read them books? Or Brother Beavis, did you go read those books?
I've tried to read them, and I never get past like about 15 or somewhere in there. I've never really made it all the way into like the Havoc and Polaris era. And particularly when they have these really weird uniforms like Angels, yellow and red. Like I've never got to that part of the book. I tried, but it's just not very good.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up my Rolling Stones too. And I tried, but I can't get no satisfaction.
Yeah, I just remember that old school when the X-Men had their little cartoon from the 60s or whatever. You ever seen that?
Who?
The X-Men, they had had everybody, not everybody, but a lot of heroes had like the goofy cartoon from the 60s.
I remember those goofy cartoons.
The X-Men had one. Yeah.
I only remember the 2 episodes of Spider-Man as Amazing Friends.
No, there was an old school X-Men episode with the same voices that are on every single one. We'll freaking do it afterwards. X-Men, and like with the classic X-Men team and the classic goofy voices from all the others, put 60s. Not 1960, like the 60s. It ain't porn, it don't work. I'm not crazy. I know what I saw.
Must have 60 John.
I don't know. As he's pulling or trying to pull that up. But yeah, I didn't even know Neil Adams did that. Like, I had no idea that he was on X-Men. And I certainly didn't know him enough to have him ranked 7th of all the X-Men artists. This feels like, again, hey, let me like take somebody off the alphabet here and pull this person out. And yeah, yeah, Neil Adams, great. That's great. You know, whatever. I mean, love Neil Adams too.
Did you interview him?
I did interview him. Yeah, South Carolina Comic Con. Yeah,
Right,
he was great.
right.
Yep, he was absolutely great. But I did not talk to him about X-Men.
I'm sorry, Neil, Mr. Adams. Yeah, you're not in front of John Byrne in anything.
Yeah, for
as far
sure.
as
Not
comic
in
books go.
anything.
You might be
Correct.
a better
Yeah.
human being, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. All right, look, number 6, Clayton Crane. Had you ever heard of this person before this started today?
So this is the point where, having got
This is when I put my hand on my knife.
having got past the insult so here's how I read the list. Art Adams, okay. Michael Choi, who? Oh, I see. It's an X-23 fetish, whatever. John Byrne, whatever. Neil Adams, okay, whatever. Clayton Crane, who's Clayton Crane? His work on X-Force. Oh, okay. Well,
good night.
That's immediate disqualification. Who gives a shit about X-Force?
Nobody. Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Additionally, the article says X-Men artist.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't say mutants, X universe. It says X-Men artist. He never drew the freaking X-Men. He drew X-Force, which aren't the X-Men. I'm sorry. They're not the same thing. And I guess he's got that kind of black and white style or whatever. And I mean, I was looking at his art and I'm like, oh, okay, I can get why that somebody would like that. That's under the age of 35. But come on, man. Like, shouldn't he have at least drawn the X book? So, Fraser Crane.
I mean, again, I'll say, it's quality art. But it's it doesn't belong on the list of top 10 X-Men comics, X-Men artists.
You gonna just skip over that ROM picture that was on the side there, Hutch? You gonna say nothing about that?
Wait a minute, ROM.
It was on the right side.
I'm right.
Keep scrolling.
Oh, there he is. Don't hate on ROM, man. ROM rules. Crane rules.
Does he?
Yeah.
Nice.
But don't hate. There will be a ROM movie before we.
I don't necessarily disagree with you on that either. Right. So Clayton Crane doesn't draw X-Men books. He drew X-Force. Again, I can see the appeal, but he shouldn't be on this list. All right. Number 5 is Dave Cockrum. Now that makes sense. Okay, he's on
not being number 5, but yeah.
No.
Be on the list.
Not being number 5, his run goes from what I guess he did Giant Size X-Men number 1, and then he goes from 94 to 107, like he butts right up to the Byrne era. And again, this is the classic X-Men team that we know from Giant Size X-Men number 1. He does such a great job, and then Byrne just takes it and freaking puts steroids on it, and blows it up.
They brought him up in that Claremont documentary. The issue was once the book was successful, they wanted to go bi-weekly and he couldn't handle the workload. So he liked doing it, but he couldn't keep up with it. But again, essentially this is the guy who led the redesign that launched the X-Men to the height of their popularity.
Right. Yeah.
Then you get Claremont and Byrne that take that run and solidify it, but no question. But higher than John Byrne, I don't see why.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, he should definitely be higher than some of the people that were on this list. But he's not. And again, like I said, I just think I view it in a sense like, okay, so Fraser Crane, Art Adams, even Neil Adams or whatever, there's nothing that they did on any of those books that you were visually remember about the X-Men. There isn't. You don't remember oh, I remember he did this particular cover, freaking whatever that dude's name. Maybe he did a variant or some sort or whatever. But there's nothing that's like from a memorable story that you remember from any of those dudes. And that's not to say that Neil Adams isn't, you know, a really great artist, because I think that he is, but his is not with X-Men. So I'm like, how the hell is he on this list?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Also, yeah, Punch brought this up before we started recording. Dave Cockrum did give us the Nightcrawler miniseries, by the way, with the Bamfs. Yeah.
Right. That's right. With all he did, all the good in the world. Damn, that shit is. But
Come on, man.
even
It's
the art was alright.
Yeah, but come on, really?
That story was things people remember 40 years later.
Blame Claremont.
Yeah, we'll sidebar really quick. You did see the Claremont documentary on Amazon Prime, I think is where it was. I had watched it a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago, I guess now too. You know, your brief review besides Rob Liefeld being a dick.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good story, but you know, the degree to which they give the passingest of passing mentions to John Byrne in that series for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But you know, I thought it was really cool. There's a whole chunk in the middle where they talk about how great Marvel was. I'm like, yeah, you could have talked about the books a little bit more. But yeah, you know, the one thing that stuck out to me, other than Rob Liefeld, who's just comes off as an absolute douche. Like,
yes.
I knew him as sort of an untalented hack who had a high opinion of himself. He comes off as an absolute douche. And the line where Louise Simonson is like, yeah, he kept asking me he's like, I want plot. He's like, I want plots with a lot of action, dynamic plots. And every time I gave him that, I would get back a lot of pictures of people posing and standing around. And then I have to write a new story to make it all fit together. But
the worst.
The one thing that he stood up was, you know, when he got to the point where they were basically handing down storylines, which, you know, was the relaunch and we want Magneto to be bad, and he walked away, and he was like, you know, he really regretted that decision. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what did he think he was going to do? Like, obviously he wasn't going to countermand that decision, but just what is it? Was it the walking away? Was it the not having, you know, presumably he could have, instead of trying to control every book, at least grab one of them and wrote it from there. So that whole thing was like, he regrets, you know, I was a younger man then, and he would have done it differently, but he got it, you know, I guess he dealt himself out of everything that went forward. And I was trying to figure out, did he get a credit on the X-Men movie? Because he sure talked like he did.
Have to go back and see. Yeah, I would imagine that he did.
Because he was like, yeah, they tried to rewrite it a bunch of times, and I gave him like the Bible of this. It's not about superpowers. It's this conflict of people who aren't accepted. And then they sent me back, and they said, okay, we can make it all make sense now. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that he had at the minimum a special thanks, you know, somewhere in there. But I mean, yeah, I remember when I watched it too, I was just like, man, I didn't realize that he was writing essentially all those X books at a point there. Like, he was writing every single one of them. And I just can't imagine what that kind of pressure would have been, you know. And then as you start to get the turn into the 90s or whatever, where, you know, everything changed and comics changed for sure. You know, I mean, he was, you know, the old dog on the porch after a while. You're like, hey, like, people want to see, you know, big guns, big tits, or whatever freaking the Chasing Amy line is. Yep. And yeah, big pockets. And, you know, that's not what he wanted to do. Yeah.
I would also say kudos to Jim Shooter. I mean, he was, you know, generally painted as the bad guy in any other reporting, and he was a big part of the review, and I think was pretty straight. And they, you know, they took some shots at him, but they were, you know, it seemed like at least people that can look back on a time and say, maybe, you know, maybe there wasn't as much conflict, or maybe it wasn't as bad as we'd like to think at the time.
Yeah.
But it also answered the other question of, like, why the fuck Thor was part of the mutant massacre.
Yeah.
So they were talking.
What was the answer?
Yeah, so they were talking about, they had the story of the mutant massacre. They wanted to kill off the mutant. They had the idea to start killing off the Morlocks, and he was like, that's too big a story. And they started to tell it over the books. And Louise Simonson was writing, I think, X Factor at the time, and so she was like, well, I want to play. and then her husband Walt was writing Thor at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So he got she was writing like Power Pack, and he was writing Thor, and then that's why those extraneous books were on there, because the Simonsons wanted to be part of it.
They wanted some money.
Yeah, we want to be a part of this too. Oh, golly.
Power Pack.
Yeah, well, also Thor. That's a Sandman shout out too.
Well,
all right, let's get back to the list here. Number 4, I can't pronounce this dude's last name. I think it's Sienkiewicz. Sienkiewicz. I'd also never heard of this person before either. But then when I started to look it up, I was like, oh, I remember those X or New Mutant covers. I hated that.
Oh, yeah.
That's basically what I did. I shall pull it up here in a second.
I gotta figure out how to spell his name.
Well, first off, New Mutants just sucks. How about that?
Wait,
all of it sucks. Nope, it all sucks. All New Mutants suck. Hickman couldn't make New Mutants cool. It sucks.
All of it sucks.
All of it.
The struggle is real, but
all of them. 3 words. Yeah, had you heard of this dude before either?
Yes.
Okay.
But only because of the Demon Bear saga, which is like the one that's day one. That's the one New Mutant story that anybody knows. And I would say that it at least took it from a very kind of sterile kids in school rebelling against the headmaster environment to at least, a completely different perspective. And, I've tried to go back and read it. And although I can appreciate the distinctiveness of the art and the uniqueness of the vision, I don't enjoy that book, and I in trying to read it, I don't enjoy it. And the most fascinating part of it is when Tom Corsi and I can't remember the other assistant get randomly turned into to Native Americans, and they still are. Sharon somebody or other.
Boy.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of this dude's art at all. Like, I don't like it at all. 0, 0, 0. Don't like it at all.
So I understand why you could put him on the list, and he is definitely unique relative to any other options you have, and made a distinctive New Mutant story that A, we still are aware of, and B, a movie was made out of, and that's a whole nother podcast. But
I seen that shit. I think I took it one for the team.
I saw it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, it's not for me, but I see why it's on the list. It's not offensive. It's not offensive to me that he's on the list.
But it's an X-Men list, and he only did one issue of X-Men, which was 159. Which is that one that's on the corner there with, like, I think that's Storm when she was the vampire and shit.
No.
Is that right? Is that what that is? Yeah. Because even Dracula wanted some brown sugar.
That was the hilarious part about that run, where we were reviewing just how every villain wanted to get with Storm.
Yeah.
That was the plot of 3 books in a span of 6 books. I think 3 of them were about somebody trying to get with them.
So yeah, I hear what you're saying about that, but that was a New Mutants book. It's not an X-Men book.
That's also a fair complaint.
So he shouldn't be on this list either. All right, number 3, probably one of my faves here. It's Paul Smith. He has a very short run, and again, I think we did a whole series of podcasts on his run, on Uncanny X-Men. The absolute minimalist style. Books were so freaking clean. Again, he had the issue allegedly of, it's very difficult to do that style, I guess, and turn books in on time. So he goes 165 to 170 and then 172 to 175, and that's it. He's off the book. And and that's saying something. He's got some memorable covers and inserts as well. There you see 173 if you're on the YouTube page. That's a classic book there. He gives us Punk Rock Storm as well. That's his initial design. And I'm looking at that story too for 174 and 175. And again, those are great stories by Claremont too, but the art is so good, when Madeline Pryor, or Mastermind takes over Madeline Pryor and, and does all that stuff to, mess with Cyclops' mind. These are great books.
And Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, oh, and he fucks up, his wedding to Mariko. I mean, these are great books. Like, I mean, dude really did a good job. You know, I'd love to hear the story as to, obviously he couldn't do the books because of the freaking, you know, they couldn't turn them in on time. But man, just that's never stopped some other people with them books being, well, actually, I guess that was a different time. Books couldn't be late back then, whereas now they're perfectly fine being late all the time.
I think you could be late if you was pulling in numbers.
I don't know if I don't know if Marvel and DC allow books to be late like that. Not anymore.
There's some late books. I got plenty of collections where, this did come out in 30 days, 60 days.
Well, yeah. Well, the classic is the Kevin Smith Daredevil and Spider-Man books.
Right. He still
but those weren't drawing. I don't think those were drawing issues. I don't think those were those issues.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, those are great books. I mean, I know, Brother Beavis, you've been a big fan of Paul Smith.
Well, the funny thing is, until you started name checking him, like I knew of these books, and I'm like, yeah, those are good books, but I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have been able to pull that name out. And when I read this list, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool for him to be on this list and also number 3. But then I reread it, and the description of this says, the cover features a crouching Wolverine. This is talking about 173. The cover features a crouching Wolverine running with a ski jacket clad Kitty Pryde. Wolverine's prose and Pryde's wardrobe has been subjected to several homages in the future. That is not Kitty Pryde.
Oh my God.
But they also give a shout out to this in the Claremont documentary. They ask him like what his favorite art is, and he talks about he talks about this issue, and it's the sequence where Rogue enters into Mariko's apartment, and all the X-Men hate her at this point.
Great, that's a great shot.
Waiting on her.
Like when she's standing at the door, kind of all humble
and they blow her to blank out.
I mean, and look at if you scroll up there, it's a second hunch. Look at that freaking card there where he's got the pictures of them all in their civvies there with Lockheed, like just up above that issue. I mean, it's
right here, right?
Yeah, right there. I mean, just a beautiful freaking book. Like, what the hell? You know, and again, such a short run, but highly underrated to say the least. Definitely would have been.
I hate the Brood, by the way.
What?
I don't like the Brood.
Really? Because of their alien ripoffness?
Well, that the Brood Queen and all. I mean, granted, if I jump around in my X-Men books, of course it's the Byrne era, and then I think this might be my second era. I kind of skipped, or I had those 150 to 160 something, but they don't jump out to me. But yeah, this series did jump out to me, and how Mastermind screwed the fuck out of Rogue, or out of the Cyclops and all that stuff. That one jumps out to me. So
it's memorable for sure. Yeah, like those are memorable ones. And like I said, some of these dudes on this list shouldn't be there for a lot of reasons, but none of them drew anything that would actually be memorable, you know, to the lore of the X-Men.
You know what his issue with the Brood is? They're too much like the Dire Race. And he's got a blood feud with the Dire Race.
You gotta bring up another Rom shot.
It always comes back to Rom.
It shouldn't, but yeah. Or wait, where's Dazzler at? Let's bring her into too.
Patience, Obi-Wan. Keep it 100. Y'all know I don't mess with horror shit. Like them Brood books back in the day, I'd be like, oh, let me read. Yep, Skippy, or we'll just go to the next thing. Yeah, that shit scared me.
Well, when they stuck, this is the same series where they stuck Wolverine, right? And he turned into one for a second.
But his healing factor saved him.
That shit was memorable. I think they all turned into one, or something. Yeah, something strange.
Nice. All right. Number 2. My note on here says, turn podcast over to Brother Beavis.
And see, I was going to say, I'm about to go like on mute and walk away like this is a DC podcast. Frank quietly. He got me to quit reading the X-Men. Like straight up, I was, because I had got back into comics pretty hard, and I was going, I had a big ass pull box, and I was reading a bunch of shit.
Mm.
From like the style itself, like I don't even like the style, but the character redesigns, particularly the
Oh.
Beast,
With the X jackets,
the
the
team,
yellow
Oh.
jackets,
and and now, so the one thing I would say is like at least bring in the color back into the leather outfit style, and having, you know, like a consistent X-Men design. Like I'll give you credit for that, but the design itself is just, oh, I cannot stand it. We get, you know, this sets us on the path, and it's so much too. It's like it's not even just the art, which I hate, but like this set us on the path that basically starts pulling all the characters apart. You know, the complete redesign of Beast. This is beginning of the end for Cyclops. You know, Wolverine becomes everybody's best friend and a natural leader. You know, we
the
tear
Emma
apart
Frost
Scott and
push.
Jean. Yeah, Emma
Yeah, the Emma
Frost, which
Frost
was,
push.
and then people love this so much, and so it's like
It sucked.
it's visually unappealing to me. It's symbolic of just the worst era in storytelling as far as I'm concerned, and people write its nutsack to no end. So yeah, this was like,
fuck
this was
Grant
the other
Morrison.
thing. Like I'll take Byrne at 8 all day before I take Frank Quitely at 2.
These books are terrible. Like I remember reading these books too, because this is like 01, 02-ish, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere
Sounds
around
right.
that big. So this is pre-kids for me. And I'm like, oh, okay, hey, you know, they're doing something new here. And then it's like, wait, why is Wolverine talking like that? Why does everybody looks like it's, I always describe it, it's like putty, but it's like melting. Like their faces are all like kind of droopy, and like I hated it so much, and it never got any better for me. And I think this is pretty much where I bailed too, you know. And Quietly's been on a bunch of stuff, you know, if you're watching on YouTube, that All-Star Superman, like that got a freaking cartoon movie from DC animated.
And I watched it too.
Yeah. And I don't care for Grant Morrison either. Like I know we're not doing writers or whatever, but you fuck him too. Like he just comes on the books and just puts like the characters in positions that aren't, you know, that takes them in a completely different direction from the characters that they had been. And so yeah, I can't. Look at Wolverine's outfit, bro.
Look at an Emma Frost outfit. I mean, she's been in some ridiculous outfits, but what is that?
Yeah.
Like, how does any of that even stay on?
Yeah. And we haven't even brought up Cassandra Nova.
This is maybe my third time ever looking at this art. I don't think I read if I read any of these books in this era, it was on a dare or something.
Yeah, don't go back. You're good. This is, you know, it's like, oh wait, let you know the X-Men, everybody's weird, so let's make everybody look weird. And yeah, it's just it was the downward spiral of the book.
We get Beak, Glob,
Zorn,
all those also rans that we're still saddled with. Ugh.
Yeah, awful, just awful.
Yeah. But that when making the Beast look like this, I don't know what the hell that is.
This was they were trying to tease up this secondary mutation, and Sage was transforming people and bullshit out of that Extreme X-Men book. And so his secondary mutation was to become more feline and more feral. It's just, it's horrible.
It's horrible.
This is some, if there was a crazy universe, this is crazy universeville. This is the way left field shit.
Yeah,
and this is number 2, 3.
He's number 2. Quietly's number 2. 2. Yes, I know. Man. It's because, like Brother Beaver said, people nutsack this run so much, and it's awful. It's fucking awful, man. Motherfucker, Cassandra Nova for real.
And nobody put me to the side and be like, "Yo, man, that Frank Quietly run was great." Man, I would whoop they fucking ass.
Yep, you should. You should. That's for sure. And he has like a weirdly short run too. Like I was Wikipedia or whatever, because Morrison's run isn't that long either. It was like, oh, you had to read the books like in segments. It was like, oh, this segment and then this segment. And then I think there were 4 different segments to get to the end of the whole thing. And I'm like, I was good through Cassandra Nova, and then I was out. I was like, that's it. I'm done. His evil fucking twin, whatever the fuck this is. Like, I'm out. Thank you. Goodbye. Next, please. All right. All right. So number 1 on the list, you could probably get an argument based on age, essentially, about number 1, which is Jim Lee. It's kind of hard to not distinguish. It's kind of hard to separate Jim Lee, the artist, from Jim Lee, the creator at Image or whatever, to me, because his Image run, Wildstorm, sell out to DC, like all of that kind of situation clouds my judgment on how I feel about his other stuff. But obviously he's, has such a huge influence on the, modern X-Men era from the early 90s or whatever, essentially, propping that up into the cartoon. So like, I get why he would be here. You can't do, I mean, all of us have that freaking, cover foiled, whatever, the 5 covers from the issue 1. Yeah, from issue 1. I'm wearing something of his era as well, which I believe is his last issue. On there, he started on Uncanny, guest spotting or whatever. I mean, and keep it 1,000 too. I mean, he spawned literal copycats. Will Spatasio. There's so many copycats of his work at the time. So I get it, like why he would be number 1. Like I totally understand that. I get why he's number 1, but he wouldn't be my number 1. What do y'all think?
No, you ain't my number 1. Oh.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think maybe this is like a Ken Anderson versus Boomer Esiason argument.
Oh,
here we go. Wrong podcast, but go ahead.
I mean, I was gonna say Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. Like, maybe that's a better case, even though I think we probably all hate both of them. But like, by a lot of measures, one is clearly better than the other. But you can have that conversation. You're probably always going to end up Brady Manning, but you can have that conversation, and Colts fans are going to go one way, and Patriots are going to go the other. It may be a short conversation. It may always end up the same way, but there's at least a conversation to be had. Again, because of the influence. And I would say, like, this is a case where, both Byrne and Lee have, distinctive influence on the character designs, obviously. But Lee's appeal is just the static moments, the cover shots, the pictures. There's no real, stories
action
that you can attribute to him. Versus Byrne, you have to put him right there with Dark Phoenix, Days of Future Past, the iconic stories from then. So, I could see why you would have that debate, but I think it's always going to come down to Byrne, is number 1, number 1 X-Men artist of all time.
My comparison would be, maybe this is a push, but whatever. Let's say Flair and Hogan.
Yeah.
Hogan would be Jim Lee, where it's.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Flair did all the hard work.
Yeah.
And that when
the mass appeal versus the the real work.
Right, the real
work rate. Right. Yeah, and I think too, I mean, again, we tell it like it is on this place. Like I think there was a more emphasis on the story that was being told and the art that supported it, as opposed to like, hey, let's just draw some pictures. Let's draw, Psylocke with some freaking hide, like whatever, crotch shots and panty shots and all those types of things, which distracted from the very short number of stories that he told. Once, Claremont dropped off the book and he was only there for, I think, for 7 more issues himself. And then he goes on to create, this Wildstorm universe and, turn out books every couple of years. Essentially. with a bunch of characters that nobody gives a fuck about. Like if you have a bunch of freaking Gen 13
Halo.
if you have a bunch of Gen 13 and what's his other creator shit?
Wildstorm.
Wildcats. No, Wildcats.
Wildcats.
Wasn't there a storm too?
Yeah, Wildstorm was
Yeah.
Somebody.
Yeah, somebody. It sucks. Like nobody cares.
But I mean,
we
all understand now that why they did it. I mean, Marvel, old boy was fucking them.
Yeah, they created their own characters and then they made money off other people creating them.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just I mean, there's all those characters.
They didn't have an issue with publisher-owned titles. They had they had an issue that they weren't the publishers. They didn't own it.
Well,
it wasn't they wanted the creators to own it. They wanted to be creators that own their own shit. Right. So they created their own shit and then put other people to work.
Right. Own your shit. If you can.
I get it. Like I said, I get why anybody would put him number one. It would make sense. Again, it's probably a little bit based on age, but I totally get it.
Right. If you ask the average wrestling fan, or not the average, well, whatever, everyone would always jump on Hulk Hogan. And, and Ric Flair is always number 2 or 3. But, yeah.
So I had a couple of people that I thought that should have been on this list that weren't, that had, fairly notable runs in terms of content as well as that. My first one is Andy Kubert. He should definitely be on that list. What are you doing? Andy Kubert, Best Buy?
I was about to say best X-Men freaking.
No, Andy Kubert should be on that list. He's kind of starts off as a Jim Lee clone until he kind of finds his style a little bit after, Lee leaves the book. And, and he's on that book for a while too. He gets a good run and takes you through a fairly good, versions of stories through the 90s that you would remember. So I thought that he was a pretty, I thought Andy Kubert probably should have made the list somewhere. I'm not sure how he doesn't make it at all. But that's one of my ones. You got anybody got one?
Well, I would have put Adam Kubert on the list before Andy.
Okay.
I always thought his work was a little bit more stylish, and I don't think he kind of grew into it to the degree. I do agree with what you said about Andy Kubert. I think he got better over the years. I still think he can't draw more than one face.
He definitely has that problem.
But in terms of having a run, in terms of kind of carrying the load for a while, he gets
the Wolverine adamantium ripped out of him. Like he gets that run, like that's him. I think he also gets Legion Quest as well. That's Andy Kubert.
Legion Quest.
Yeah, so I mean, like he's but again, he's a part of memorable stories. Legion wound up getting a TV show on freaking FX. So not that I watched it. At least got a show out of it.
Yeah,
it was good for a while.
Which Kubert was Onslaught? Is that Andy? That's Andy Kubert too.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that's Andy Kubert too. Yeah, I mean, like I said, he started off as a Jim Lee clone, but he kind of, found it. But you're right, he can only draw one face. They're all exactly alike. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I also had Joey Madrora. I don't know if I'm spelling his name or saying his name right.
I can't spell it, I don't think.
Well, look, here's how it goes for me. Okay, so I never watched anime or manga or whatever that shit y'all watch. I don't even know the difference between the two.
That's not shit.
So fair. I don't know the difference between the two, but like when he came on that book, I was like, damn, this is different. Like this is like mid to late 90s when he comes on Uncanny, and his style was completely different than anything that anybody else was doing at the time. That's the guy right there who also didn't make this list, which is insane. But Like and then he comes out completely differently too. Later on, he changes his style completely, and when they try to put him back on books, people are like, "What? Like, we didn't pay you to draw like this. We paid you to want to see these other things." But I thought his run on Uncanny was pretty dope. Anyone?
No,
Anyone?
I agree. He's great.
Yeah.
I was trying to
Can't draw books on time.
remember how much of the regular runs he was on. But yeah, he definitely had a run on X-Men.
Yeah, he was on the Uncanny book there for a while. Hutch is pulling us through on YouTube or whatever. Chris Bachelor probably should be on that list.
That was one I was gonna add. He was great too. Like, although he I think his biggest run was on Gen X, right?
Generation X.
And he evolved over time too, because he used to draw everybody so fucking tiny, like, or whatever. But then he, as he got, into the books a little bit more, he, his style expanded. But yeah, if you go back down, Joe Madrora was, he was a part of that book for Days of Future, or not Days of Future Past, Age of Apocalypse.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, I mean, his run was, when he left to go do his creator-owned thing, was that Battle Chasers that never came out. Yeah,
I think issue 3 is still on the schedule.
Production. Yeah.
Boy, that's a line step. But sure.
It's not a line step. It's absolutely 100% true. Shit. People still sitting at there waiting at the mailboxes for that shit. So yeah, that was my one other one. And then my other one, it was Pepe La Raz, who just did, and again, he has a short run because it was really just House of X. And I thought he did, like, it's the background picture of mine. That's the book he's doing with Jerry Dugan right now. But I thought it was just great. Like, I thought the art in House of X is pretty freaking amazing. Again, it's a great story too, but the artwork definitely flowed with the whole thing. So yeah, big fans of Pepe La Raz. Now this Clayton Crane dude's on every list of these top X-Men artists, and I ain't never heard his name before. Fuck.
Well, you got me.
Yeah,
a nice cover rip off of the Lost Boys, I guess.
Yeah, I think he gets known for that. Anybody else got anybody else that you should?
Well, I was gonna say I've never been a fan of Barry Windsor Smith, and I also was never really a huge fan of Romita Jr. on X-Men either. Like a huge run, a lot of great stories, influential, but his style is just, it always looked too unfinished to me.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. That is his style.
And Barry Windsor Smith always seemed like it had all the detail in the wrong spots. Like, I don't know. His art was almost like kind of too realistic in a sense. But they also put him on stories that I absolutely couldn't. He wrote the classic Storm and Forge stories. So, minus 50 from Gryffindor for that.
Hey, man.
It's your Sinkowitz. All right. Hutch, did you have anybody? I mean, you're looking through that list. They show that one of Mark Silvestri, and his books look nothing like that when he drew the damn book. Like nothing. Like, I thought Silvestri did a good job back then too. Yeah. But he should be on this list above some of the other people that are on there because he had a fairly decent run too, on those books.
I remember reading some of these books and some I don't remember at all. But, I think Byrne is number one.
Yeah.
And Lee could be number 2 or 3, somewhere in that group.
Mm-hmm.
That's my list.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So that was really it. It was just kind of an exercise to really just go and shit on Screen Rant. That's basically what it is.
It was clickbait.
It's complete clickbait. Yeah, no, I understand.
Clickbait. I'm surprised I didn't have a thing for if you have any. I ain't checked the comment section, but it should have been lit up with people saying this is the craziest fucking list I've ever seen in my fucking life. You're a fucking idiot for putting this shit out.
Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, top WCW wrestlers. Pez Watley at number 10.
Jimmy Valiant, number 8.
Yeah, exactly.
Hall of Famer.
Actually, I don't know that he's a Hall of Famer.
He got inducted in the
He
Hall of
got,
Fame.
but yeah, but I think he was because I watched it on WrestleMania because I was like, the fuck? I think it was like he got I don't know, it's not honorable
Either you
mention.
in or you ain't.
I think it's
Either
like
you pissed off McMahon or you didn't.
it's like a special
That's the
section.
criteria.
I think though to get in the Hall of Fame, you actually have to be like, you get the ceremony
Alive?
and the jacket. No, that's why he got in to begin with because he's dead. But like, like I don't think he's a traditional Hall of Famer.
Is Tony Atlas in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. His sucking toes is probably not helping his case at all.
I mean, but like,
there's people that did worse.
I mean, who don't like toes?
Like the only reason that like they're running out, so there's a criteria, there's a quota now for the
yes, has to be it.
So they have to have a certain number of people of color, certain number of tag teams, certain number of females, certain number of managers, or whatever. The only reason Pistol Pez Watley or Shaska Watley, as we would probably prefer, should be in there is because they've run out of people. That's why I said like Tony Atlas isn't in. There's one at least.
Yes. Hold on.
Legacy wing.
Legacy. Thank you. See, that's not really a Hall of Famer.
Look, I'm sorry. If you walk in there and he's not handing out fucking pamphlets, his ass is in the Hall of Fame.
Pamphlets, come on.
I mean, shit. If you
come on,
he in there.
And the irony is,
I mean, he ain't
like,
on the.
This might be the last three people on the planet talking about
who Pez
Watley.
Right. Is Chris Adams in there?
No,
right, exactly.
Definitely not.
Right.
No. Yeah, apparently he was not a nice person.
No, well, is Iceman? Yeah, the gentleman. Is Iceman King Parsons in there?
No.
I don't think he is either. But
no.
Coco Beware's in there though, right?
Of course, yeah, he's got to be. He Shelley was one of the first Negroes.
But that makes sense. I mean,
yeah, he was there. He was the bird. That would make sense. But Pez, what the hell does Pez have to do?
Sense.
It does. What the hell does
Brought out a pack of Oreos for Chris Adams and Panama Jack.
Yeah, and then he also freaking he called Chris Adams out on being an asshole back then too. We just didn't know. It was just like
we know. We didn't know. None of these people were nice. We knew that.
We were not cheering for Iceman King Parsons at the time. I wasn't.
Well, you weren't, but we know all these.
I'm talking about that jailbird, that Oreo cookie out here.
The racism came out pretty easy for
them. Yeah, pretty easy.
They always got those promos right.
Yeah, that's fine. All right.
Oh man.
Well, as we wrap up this part of it, we will be back shortly. Has been a lot as the pandemic has
whooped our ass.
Continued on, really, but capitalism continued on too. Things are coming back. We got movies coming up. There's TV shows. My other note on here says for our next podcast, what if turn Brother Beavis loose again? Because we've talked about this for years now. Marvel and animation, I don't know what happens. Something happens and it gets lost in translation. It's not like it's bad. It's not, get my Marvel Fleer cards Fantastic Four bad. However, what the fuck? But we'll talk about it later. I don't want to, get too far into that. But that what if is really what if it was good? Because it's not terrible. Like I'm shitting on it a little bit. It's not terrible, but it ain't good.
It's the alternative. Well, most of the stories aren't good. I mean, it happened in real life. So the what if version of them are.
They've done their darn best to build up characters in the movies. To then put them they clearly view the animation as inferior to just shit on it. And it doesn't have to be that way. If give DC all their props, they don't shit on their animated characters.
Oh, well, have you ever seen some of the new ones? There's some shit they putting out now.
Well, I haven't seen much recently. They need to see the whole long Halloween. But anyway, different podcast. All right. So as the X-Men animated music starts to play us out, we don't really care for your politics too much, John Byrne, but you could draw the hell out of a fucking book. So we'll just leave it at that, man. We'll just try not to go onto your Facebook page too much. But we do appreciate it as a producer of this podcast. Sandman, man, I hope you enjoyed this listen. Hope it gets you through the day. I'm out. Damn it, look at that spot. I keep doing it. Brother Beavis, sign out.
See you guys next time.
Hutch, don't get fired, man.
Yeah, till we meet again.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see everybody next time. Peace.
Deuce.